Welcome to Brilliantly British. My name is Lawrence and today I'm going to show you how to make a classic pork pie from scratch. So as I show you how, please sit back, relax with a cup of tea in hand, putting your feet up to, and enjoy this episode. And don't forget to subscribe. As you can see, pies come in a variety of shapes and sizes, with some being sweet and some being savoury. And it'll come as no surprise to hear that we love them in the UK. And so, with this in mind, in this episode, we'll be sharing our recipe for one of England's oldest and most famous pastry encased dishes. This, my dear viewers, is a pork pie, filled with hand-minced pork encased in a crisp and golden hot water crust pastry. And a step-by-step will show you how to prepare it, followed by a session of tasting at the end as an extra added dose of persuasion. So now, with the introductions made and your interest peaking, please allow me to introduce the ingredients to you. For today's Brilliantly British pork pie, you will need some stock, and you can go for our chicken stock or vegetable stock. Follow the link up there to learn how to make it yourselves at home. You will also be needing some lard, some leaves of gelatin, some parsley, some sage. You will also be needing a pork shoulder joint, ground mace, some white pepper, some nutmeg, some plain white flour, an egg, some salt, and some pepper too, to avoid the occurrence of bland food. And that is all you will need for the making of today's Brilliantly British pork pie. But, I say this all the time and I'm going to say it again, switch on your kettle, brew yourself a nice cup of hot tea so that you can sip on that whilst you bake. To begin preparing our pork pie, we'll start with the hot water crust pastry, a pastry that will require you to melt lard in water with a pinch of salt without boiling the contents. With all of the contents now in a liquid state, switch off your source of heat, turn in your flour and mix well until a soft, pliable dough forms. And on a well-floured surface, I then barrel rolled and cut off a third of the pastry, which will be used to form the top of the pie later, with the remaining 2/3 being used to form the main pie casing, by gradually spreading the pastry within my baking pan. The key here is to take your time, ensuring that the base and sides end up being roughly equally as thick, with all of the inner areas of the baking pan being covered. And so, with the pastry well and truly spread within my pan, I set the pan aside and proceeded by rolling out the remaining third on a well-floured surface sufficiently in order to later cover and top my pie. And with it sufficiently rolled out and subsequently cut out, I gathered the trimmings, which, mind you, can be kept to decorate the pie later, and more importantly, set the pie top and the pan to one side to begin preparing the filling. For this recipe, if like me, a mincer isn't available, a sharp knife will be required as the mincing will be carried out by hand. I likewise, in preparation for the coming steps, advise greasing your boards, which should make the job of cleaning up later on much easier. So, to begin, I'll first remove any skin, which you can keep if you're a fan of pork scratchings. Then, with the skin removed, begin dividing the joint by first slicing and dicing into even-sized chunks with each pass of your knife. This part of the recipe will require you to take your time as you gradually break down the pork shoulder into smaller and smaller pieces. Once again, making sure that consistency is maintained in order to yield a consistent pork mince later on. In my case, I was happy to stop once my pork had been diced into roughly 5mm cubes, at which point the mince was transferred into a suitably sized bowl in preparation for seasoning. And having begun preheating my oven on a clean board, continued by finely mincing my herbs, namely parsley and sage, before adding them thereto with salt, mace, nutmeg and white pepper. Following on, it goes without saying that the mince and seasonings will need to be well combined with a spatula, or in my case by hand, before relocating the mince into your pastry lined pan. Once filled, top with your pastry top and crimp by hand to seal, and at this point you'll have to excuse and overlook the blurred footage. Nevertheless, I proceeded by egg washing the top and finishing with an all-important vent hole in the center before relocating into my oven. With the hard part over, take a well-deserved tea break, and for those watching, if you like the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you. Once baked and golden brown, place the pie to one side for just a moment while we begin to prepare the all-important jellied stock. In some cold water, I'll begin to soak leaves of gelatin in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions, using the time whilst I wait to warm up my stock. Crucially, to a temperature in line with instructions on the back of my gelatine pack, so as not to overheat and destroy the gelatin as it is added and dissolved. Once dissolved, with the aid of a funnel, I poured my stock into the pie, which will require some patience as the stock gradually seeps into the pie each time. But once full to the brim with stock, set the pie aside, allowing it to cool completely, and ideally thereafter spend an overnight period in your fridge to thoroughly set. So now, with a pork pie made and your appetites peaking, I think it's high time for tasting. 3, 2, 1. Spot on. It's amazing how wonderfully balanced all of the spices are in this. The mace you can identify, the nutmeg, the pepper, the herbs as well, the parsley, the sage. They're all wonderfully balanced and they do this wonderful dance on your tongue, coupled with the meatiness coming from the pork in here, which it makes a difference cutting it, mincing it by hand, because you just get so much more texture. It's moist as well, indicating that it's been perfectly cooked. The crust is, as the name suggests, it's crusty, it's crunchy, it adds texture as well, and it helps to seal all of that wonderful moisture in. This pie would go wonderfully with any chutney of your choice, especially the chutneys that we have available on our channel. Learn how to make them by following the link up there. But look, I could go on and on and on, but what I will say is that just to conclude, I insist, I'm begging you, go out, get the ingredients, get the pork, get the spices, get the gelatin, get all of it, and make it this wonderful pie, because you can just eat your way through it bit by bit, day by day, and it will just be an absolute pleasure. So please, please, please make this pork pie, please. Thank you all for allowing me to show you how to make a pork pie. Knowing that you loved this episode, don't forget to click on the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification button so that you don't miss any of our new releases. Tell everyone that you know, and I mean everyone that you know, about the brilliantly British food on this channel, and follow us on all of the social media platforms that this channel is on, and I will see you